Part 22. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 211. Han Yu got the permission and hurried home immediately. He originally promised to go out for 2 days, but now it is the 3rd day. His wife might be worried at home. He only learned about the danger of this trip when he received the mission and set off. It was too late to notify his wife, not to mention he didn't want her to worry. In fact, the people sent by Su Wenyu only left a little earlier than Han Yu. When Han Yu returned to the military camp, the people sent by Su Wenyu happened to find out the news and returned. "Are you sure?" Nanny Chen looked a little solemn. She felt that there might be such a thing as telepathy in the world. Madam had been restless and worried these past 2 days. As expected, the Lord was in danger outside. I was afraid that I heard wrongly, so I asked several people to ask, and they all said the same thing. They said that our adults offended someone who should not be offended in the military camp, so they were framed and sent on such a dangerous mission. Those are all. It's a mob, fighting to the death. The first 2 times we sent people, more than half of them were killed or injured. This time we sent our adults, and they haven't come back yet. I don't know if they are in danger. Chinjai was worried. He said, "The master is kind, and they, the servants, can only hope for the best from the master." "What? How can this be good?" When Grandma Chen heard the news, she was so frightened that her face turned pale. Madam was still pregnant with a child. She couldn't even imagine what happened to the adults. Grandma Chen was so shaken that she couldn't decide what to do, so she immediately called Grandma Li to come over and discuss it together. After all, Grandma Li has seen big scenes. Although she could not hide her worries after hearing such news, she calmed down a lot. "You all should be calmer. No matter what you think in your heart, don't show anything strange on your face. You should remain the same as usual. Whatever needs to be done. Madam is still pregnant with a child. Twins are inherently dangerous and cannot bear the slightest stimulation, so this matter must be hidden from Madam first." Although Grandma Li respects Han Yu very much and usually obeys Han Yu's orders, at the critical moment, Su Wenyu's safety is the most important thing, so she will continue with these instructions first. But if you hide this kind of thing from Madam, there must be someone who can make the decision on what to do. How can we, the current people, be the masters of the matter? Grandma Chen still felt that it was inappropriate. "How about we go look for it? We all have some martial arts skills. Although we are not as good as adults, we are better than ordinary people. You may need help when you need help. We can also add some help in the past. It's better than waiting like this." Be Strong Chenghai and others were sent to the hospital by Mrs. Su that time, and they were all loyal to the Su family. Now that they are in the Han family, their loyal objects have become Han Yu and Su Wenyu. Something happened to their master. It's natural to step forward. If you go there, who will be responsible for Madam's safety? The world is getting more and more chaotic, and our place is not very peaceful. There were people who wanted to climb over the wall and steal things. Miss Xiao 11 is good at martial arts, but after all she is just a girl. You still have to leave someone behind. This will definitely not work. No one in the family can move. My wife is a month old, so I have to ensure her safety. As for my uncle, Chinjai, you go to the Su mansion immediately to report the news. The eldest young master is also back. The master and the young master will definitely think of something. It's up to you to rescue your excellency, and your excellency may not be in trouble. The news Chinjai got back from asking is just that your excellency has not come back, so we can't panic first. Grandma Li made arrangements in an orderly manner, and Chenghai immediately rode to the Su family to report the news. No one expected that Han Yu would come back not long after. At that time, Grandma Chen thought that her eyes were dim and had hallucinations. When Han Yu arrived, in front of me, I was really sure that Han Yu was back. "Sir, you are back," Grandma Chen looked at Han Yu, who was in a state of embarrassment but intact, and she almost burst into tears with excitement. Mama Chen, what are you doing? Han Yu looked puzzled at Nanny Chen's reaction. Grandma Chen quickly wiped away her tears and explained, yesterday, Madam didn't wait for the adults to come back, and she felt very uneasy, so she sent Cheng Hai to the camp early this morning. However, when she learned that the adults were in danger and hadn't come back yet, she thought something happened to you, and the old slave was a little excited when he saw you. Han Yu's heart tightened when he heard this, and there was a bit of murderous aura and murderous intent on his face. What did you say? Madam knows about this. Grandma Chen was so frightened that her legs went weak. Although the Lord was usually majestic, he was not so intimidating. No, Madam is pregnant. We were afraid that Madam would be irritated if she knew about it, so we kept it secret from Madam. Chinjai has gone to Su's house to report the news. Please ask the master and the eldest master to lead people to rescue you. Just keep it a secret. You have done a good job in this matter, and you will be rewarded later. Han Yu was just worried that something might happen to his wife, but when he heard Granny Chen say that he was hiding it from his wife, he put his worries down. The servants sent over by his mother-in-law were indeed good, and they were all able to withstand trouble. Hearing that Chinjai had gone to the Su family to report the news, Han Yu sent another person to the Su family to prevent the Yu family from being anxious. The old slave was so scared that he lost his mind. This was all done by Grandma Li. Although Grandma Chen is not as capable as Grandma Li, nor as calm and courageous as Grandma Li, she is a down-to-earth person and not greedy. Gong, when Han Yu said this, he immediately explained. Han Yu was not focused on that right now. He just wanted to see Su Wenyu right away. After hearing this, he just said that he understood, and then walked quickly to the inner courtyard. Madam, your excellency is back. Xiao 11 knew that Han Yu was back and immediately ran to tell Su Wenyu the good news. My lord is back. It's great, but everything is safe. Auntie Li's always stern face also showed a rare smile, and asked quickly. It's okay. The master is back in good condition. He looks a little embarrassed, but there's no sign of injury. You'll know when you see him later, Zioxi said with a smile. She was on edge just now because she was afraid of letting the cat out of the bag. Now she said it was out of the bag as soon as she was happy and relaxed. Su Wenyu was surprised that Zioxi was so happy about Han Yu's return. She could tell something was wrong after listening to the conversation between Nanny Li and Zioxi. The two of them were hiding something from her, and it was related to Han Yu. Her face darkened. Nanny Li, what's going on? Are you hiding something from me? Su Wenyu's voice was a little cold. Even though she knew that Nanny Li and the others were mostly doing it for her own good, and they were afraid that she would get excited and hurt the baby in her belly, she couldn't tolerate such self-willed behavior. It was okay for ordinary small things, but for Su Wenyu, it was a big deal about Han Yu. This. Nanny Li was thinking about how to explain to Su Wenyu, and she heard a mellow voice coming from the door. You all go down, I will tell Madam about this matter myself. After Han Yu said this, Nanny Li breathed a sigh of relief and retreated with Zioxi. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 212. What's going on? Su Wenyu asked, but stopped when she saw Han Yu in a mess, with a tired face and bloodshot eyes. Husband, what happened to you? How did you become like this? Su Wenyu looked at Han Yu with heartache. At this time, she didn't bother to question him. She asked someone to bring in water and food first, and let Han Yu wash up and eat before talking. Are you full? Have some more soup, Su Wenyu said, and personally scooped a bowl of soup for Han Yu, brought it to Han Yu, and watched Han Yu finish it. Husband, have you not rested much in the past few days? Otherwise, how could you be so tired? Su Wenyu saw that Han Yu was full, and then began to ask what happened in the past few days. Seeing Su Wenyu asking, Han Yu did not hide anything and told the general story again, but skipped some thrilling and infuriating things to avoid Su Wenyu's worry. That's roughly what happened. Don't worry, my wife. Nanny Li and the others believed the rumors in the camp, so they panicked and thought something happened to me. I'm back safe and sound. You have to believe that your husband is a capable man. He will support you and the child in the future and won't let anything happen to him. Han Yu comforted his wife when he saw that she was still worried. Su Wenyu understood what happened and knew that Han Yu did have the ability. Since he was able to sit in the position of Prime Minister in his previous life, he should be able to handle the things in the military camp. So she let go of her worries and told Han Yu about what happened at home. Speaking of currency reform, Han Yu also had a look of disapproval on his face. Now the court is controlled by flatterers, and the laws implemented are impractical. Not only can they not play the role they should, but they make the people miserable. That's right. Nowadays, you can always see people crying and shouting in the market because they can't make ends meet. The court is turbulent, and the people below are the ones who suffer in the end. If our family hadn't made preparations in advance, I'm afraid we would be the same as others, worrying about how to live a good life now. Su Wenyu talked to Han Yu about Madame He again. Han Yu knew that Madame He came to borrow food twice before, but he didn't expect that Madame He was so thick-skinned that she could come again and disturb his wife's peace. Looking at his wife's disgusted expression, you can tell that Madame He must have made a lot of trouble. Wife, don't bother with people like that in the future, don't ruin your mood. He Donghai is a sensible man, but I don't know why he married such a wife. Not only does she make the family restless, but she also embarrasses people outside. Speaking of this, Han Yu couldn't help but sigh that he married a good wife who took care of everything and didn't have to worry about it at all. If his parents hadn't been reminded by his wife earlier, there wouldn't be such a good result. Okay, let's not talk about this for now. You haven't had a good rest these days. Have a good sleep. Let's talk when you have enough energy. Then let's sleep together. Han Yu knew that his wife had been restless these 2 days and must not have had a good rest, so he simply pulled Su Wenyu to sleep together. This sleep lasted for more than an hour. When Han Yu woke up, Su Wenyu was still asleep. Thinking that Su Wenyu hadn't had a good rest these 2 days, Han Yu didn't wake her up, let Su Wenyu continue to sleep, and went to the study room himself. Who is it? Han Yu immediately felt something was wrong when he entered the study. A black shadow flashed past the window and disappeared when he chased after it. Han Yu's face was solemn. The opponent's skills were too good. Even if he fought against him, he might not have a complete chance of winning. The most important thing was that this man had first-class light skills. He couldn't catch up even if he found him. Moreover, for Han Yu, sneaking into his study in broad daylight was equivalent to a provocation to him. It seemed that the defense of the house should be strengthened. It was not enough to rely on the few guards sent by his mother-in-law. The guards were okay for ordinary people, but they were obviously not good enough for specially trained masters. I don't know what the purpose of this man in black sneaking into his study was. With such skills, he was obviously not an ordinary thief, and what he wanted was naturally not ordinary things. Thinking of the 2 military books, Han Yu's face was a little unpredictable. Could it be that the man came for these 2 military books? However, this matter was known only to him and his wife, and it was impossible to leak out. Han Yu returned to the study and scanned it. He did not find anything missing, and there was no sign that the things in the room had been turned over. There were only a few more pages of paper on the table. Han Yu picked it up and looked at it. His expression became more unpredictable and a little deep. He secretly speculated about the origin of the information and the intention of the person who sent it. He was actually a little confused. He also needed to confirm the information and news on it. If it is true, those people's intentions are not to be said to be sinister. They actually thought of using such a method to deal with him. This means that they must get rid of him, because his existence is a road for some people, making them feel threatened, so they have to eliminate him as a threat. Thinking about what happened this time, isn't it the same meaning? However, it is not so easy to eliminate him. Hanyu clenched the information in his hand, and his face was a solemn and cruel face that Su Wenyu had never seen before. Hanyu carefully read the information on the table again, not missing even the details, and memorized them in his mind. If the news and information were true, it would be of great help to him. Otherwise, even if he was confident in his abilities, he might not be able to escape unscathed after breaking into such an elaborate conspiracy and trap. To put it more seriously, it would not be easy for him to even come back alive. Perhaps the person who sent the news and information wanted to help him. This could also explain why the man in black could have sneaked in at night without anyone noticing, but chose this time. Was it intentional for him to discover him? However, the most urgent task now is not to speculate on the intention and identity of the person who sent the information, but to verify the credibility of the information and make arrangements for the traps and conspiracies of these people to resolve the impending danger. Hanyu thought about writing a letter immediately and asked the guard to send it to the Su family. At present, the only family that can help him quickly verify the authenticity of these information and is absolutely reliable is the Yu family. After sending the letter to the Su family, Hanyu made some corresponding arrangements. He heard the familiar footsteps at the door and had to put down the pen. "Wife, why are you here?" Be careful when Hanyu came, he specially asked Su Wenyu to stay by his side and wait for Su Wenyu to wake up and tell her. Unexpectedly, when Su Wenyu came by herself, he hurried over to help her. "It's okay. Didn't the doctor say that I can't just lie down blindly and ask me to move around properly? That's why I came to see you." Hanyu was here, and Su Wenyu waved away the servants around her and sat down with the help of Hanyu. "You go ahead and do your work. Don't worry about me. I'll just sit here." Su Wenyu said this, and her eyes swept over the several plates of snacks on the table. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 213. Su Wenyu swallowed her saliva. She had been restless for the past 2 days because of Hanyu's matter and had no mood to eat. Only when Hanyu came back did she feel hungry. She ate a lot of food at once. It seemed that her appetite was bigger than before. She had eaten before coming. She had just eaten before going to bed. Now she drank porridge and ate 2 baskets of steamed dumplings, a big bowl of soup, and a lot of snacks. If Lima hadn't stopped her, Su Wenyu would have wanted to eat more. At this time, she saw a few plates of snacks on the table and felt hungry again. However, Su Wenyu just glanced at them to prevent Hanyu from finding out, otherwise there would be nothing to eat. If it weren't for Hanyu's death order, the servants at home would not have been so strict. Su Wenyu thought so in her heart, but she couldn't help but secretly glance at the snacks on the table. Hanyu was thinking about other things at this time, so he didn't notice Su Wenyu's abnormality. Instead, he thought that the information was still on the table and hadn't been put away. He couldn't let his wife find out, otherwise he couldn't stand being scared all day. "Then you sit here for a while, I'll be done soon. I'll let Lee Mama come in to take care of you." "No need, I'm just sitting here and not doing anything. Why should Lee Mama come in? Besides, you're not here, you go do your thing, I'll be alone for a while." So when Ayu hurriedly stopped her, if Lee Mama came in to serve, she wouldn't have to think about these plates of snacks. "Well, you sit here and call me if you need anything," Hanyu said, and took another cushion to put on the chair, so that Su Wenyu could sit there comfortably, and then went to do his own thing. Su Wenyu was relieved when she saw Hanyu leave, secretly cursing herself for being useless, getting nervous like this, and spending so much time on a few plates of snacks, it was really degenerate. The matter has basically been dealt with, and it's just some finishing touches. Hanyu put everything away and looked over to Su Wenyu. He saw Su Wenyu happily eating a few plates of snacks on the table. He shook his head helplessly. How could his wife become a foodie? Li Ma said that his wife came here after eating. It turned out that she had to sit there alone just for those plates of snacks. Yu Niang, Li Ma just said that you ate a lot of food. Why are you eating snacks again? It's only been less than 7 months, and your belly is so big. You really can't eat more. Hanyu's tone was full of helplessness. He walked over to take away the remaining snacks. He saw that his wife had secretly stuffed 2 pieces in her hand. When he looked over, she quickly stuffed them into her mouth. Her cheeks bulged up and down, like a little squirrel stealing food. Wife, you are really, Hanyu sighed. What is she really? Su Wenyu saw Hanyu like this and didn't make any excuses. Her eyes stayed on the plate that Hanyu brought away. She was also helpless. She didn't want to do this either, but she couldn't help the desire to eat. She didn't know if it was because the baby in her belly needed to absorb nutrients, so she kept wanting to eat. I'm really hungry. Who told me that everything I ate was digested by the baby in my belly? Su Wenyu firmly believed that her recent gluttony was due to the baby in her belly. Hanyu looked at his wife's belly, which was already abnormally large. In fact, he also felt that there was some truth in this. His wife's belly was getting bigger and bigger, but she was not fat at all. On the contrary, she was a little thinner than before. It seemed that all the food she ate grew on her belly, so Hanyu had to restrict his wife's eating. It would be better if the meat grew on her body, but it grew on her belly. The bigger the belly, the more difficult it would be to give birth. Wife, I know you are uncomfortable with the pregnancy. There are less than 2 months left. Let's bear it. When the baby is born, you can eat whatever you want. Su Wenyu rolled her eyes at Hanyu. He didn't need to say anything when the time came. But thinking that Hanyu was doing it for her good, she held back her anger and hoped that the baby would be born soon, otherwise life would be really sad. Since that day, Hanyu has been completely busy. Although he was busy before, he always accompanied Su Wenyu at night. These days, Hanyu went out early and came back late. Sometimes he came back with a few strangers to discuss things in the study. Su Wenyu wanted to ask, but Hanyu just picked up unimportant things and said a few words, and then refused to say more. Su Wenyu knew that Hanyu was afraid that she would worry, but it would be easier for people to think too much if she didn't know anything. However, even if Hanyu didn't tell her, Su Wenyu had other ways to know. Women also have their own social circles, and sometimes they know things faster than Hanyu gets from the military camp. It's just that she hasn't been out for a long time because of her pregnancy, so she is a little isolated from the news. Madam Chen, take my note to the Lu family and say that I'm bored and want to talk to someone. If Madam Lu has time, please come over. Su Wenyu remembered that Lu Zhaoxi hadn't come to her house for a while. It was probably because of those rumors that made Lu Zhaoxi a little worried. Moreover, because of the currency reform, the Lu family was afraid that life would not be easy. They didn't even want to rent a carriage to go to the county town to celebrate the birthday of the county magistrate's wife. It can be seen that the family is not very wealthy, so life will be even more difficult. Su Wenyu thought about asking Zhaoxi to prepare some food, rice, flour, vegetables, and meat, divided into several portions, and took a bag of sweet potatoes, also divided into several portions, thinking of sending them to Hanyu's subordinates later. She remembered that Hanyu said that his subordinates had a hard time because of the currency reform, and the court still owed them food and wages. Since these people were willing to follow Hanyu, she helped Hanyu take care of their families, which would also be helpful to Hanyu and make those subordinates more loyal to Hanyu. As for colleagues who were on good terms with Hanyu, it was not good to send things rashly. She had to wait for the right time, otherwise people would misunderstand and think that she looked down on people, which would be bad. Luzayashi was also worried about family affairs these days. Moreover, she heard that he was driven out by Suwenayu for borrowing food. Thinking about the situation at home, she went to Han's house less often. At this time, she heard that Suwenayu sent someone to invite her. Knowing that Suwenayu treated her differently from others, she immediately packed up and went to Han's house. Suwenayu saw Lu Zhao coming and quickly asked someone to serve tea and snacks. "Sister-in-law, you are finally here. I don't know what Hanyu has been busy with these days. He goes out early and comes back late every day. I am pregnant and it is not easy for me to go out. I am bored at home alone, so I had to find you to talk. I hope you don't mind the trouble." "What are you talking about? I wish I could come to you to have a cup of tea, but my husband is the same. He is very busy these days." Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 214. "Oh, really? I don't know what they are busy with," Suwenayu asked casually. Luzayashi didn't have much to doubt, but she really didn't know. Hanyu was a thoughtful person. Since he didn't want Suwenayu to know, he would naturally expect Suwenayu's idea of Luzayashi and others, so he had already told his subordinates, and this matter must be kept strictly confidential. Even for a few trusted subordinates, Hanyu only revealed part of it to avoid the news leaking out. "Who knows? He didn't tell me when asked, and said that this is not something we women should be in charge of." That tone is really infuriating. Luzayashi couldn't help complaining about this. Suwenayu was a little disappointed when she heard Luzayashi say this. If Luzayashi didn't know, others would know even less. She also thought that Lu Kong was a straightforward man who couldn't keep secrets, so she deliberately found Luzayashi to ask questions. "It's the same with Hanyu in our family. He didn't tell me anything, saying that he didn't want me to worry, but if he really didn't know anything, he would be unsure." Zhao felt that what Suwenayu said made sense. "That's right, I'll go ask later." Suwenayu chatted with Lu Zhao about some other things, nothing more than gossips about the neighbors. After chatting for a while, she felt exhausted and very sleepy. Lu Zhao said goodbye and went back, but Suwenayu pretended to stay, so that Li Mama sent her away properly and didn't forget to bring the things she prepared for the Lu family. Lu Zhao knew Suwenayu's temper, so she accepted it without much hesitation. She was still very happy in her heart. With these, the family could live a more comfortable life. When Lu Kong came back in the evening, he saw that the dinner was very rich, with fragrant white rice, roast chicken, braised pork, and a few things he had never seen before, as well as fashionable green vegetables. At this time, even green vegetables are very expensive. This table of dishes could be eaten every once in a while before, but now it is a luxury. However, Zhao had always been in charge of the family affairs. Lu Kong only brought back food and salary every month. No matter how trivial the family affairs were, Zhao arranged them. Lu Kong knew that Zhao was not the kind of person who would spend money recklessly, and was just surprised to see such a rich meal. "Mother, what good day is today? The meal is so rich." Lu Kong sniffed the fragrance and sniffed. He couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food. He stretched out his hand and pinched a piece of braised pork and put it in his mouth. Zhao saw it and kept talking about it. Lu Kong just smiled foolishly. "It's really delicious. I haven't eaten such delicious food for a long time. I'm really greedy." Lu Kong was a rough man. When he was excited, he would say vulgar words. "What are you talking about? Can't you change your tone? It's like a bandit leader. Look at how well educated Lord Han is. Can't you learn from Lord Han? Go wash your hands quickly and come out to eat." After washing your hands, Zhao scolded with a smile, her eyes full of tenderness. Seeing Lu Kong's happy look, she felt happy in her heart. "Your husband will never change in his life. Lord Han is a learned man, and I am just a rough man. Look at your character. Wife, you haven't answered me what day it is today. Why is the dinner so sumptuous? It's not a day. I went to the Han family today. These are all given by Madam Han. How can this be good? The world is not as good as before. The currency is worthless, and things are sold at very high prices. How can Madam Han spend so much? Wife, don't take things from Madam Han anymore in the future. It's not easy for anyone. Lu Kang heard that these things came from the Han family and didn't agree. I know this truth, so when Madam Han gave me these things, I refused to accept them. But Madam Han said that this was Master Han's intention, saying that you subordinates are loyal to Master Han, and we can't let your family live in misery. These things are not only for our family, but also for others who follow Master Zhao. Knew that Lu Kang would say this, and she was waiting for Lu Kang with words, but she was not such a person who didn't know the importance of things. She would not accept things that she really couldn't accept. Lu Kang was moved when he heard what Zhao said, and felt that following Master Han was the best decision he had made. Although he had suffered a lot of hardships and encountered dangers, Master really regarded them as brothers and kept them in his heart, so what was not worth it? Your Excellency is always kind to us and considerate. We fight hard in the military camp. Besides earning a future, we also want our family to live a good life. In this case, you should keep the things that Madam Han gives you in the future. Anyway, my life belongs to you, Lu Kang, and I will go through fire and water for you. Lu Kang is a man of honor, and he speaks words of honor. Zhao was a little unhappy when she heard this. What does it mean that this life belongs to you? Where does he put her and the child? But it's okay to think about it. After so many years, she still doesn't know her man's temper. It's unnecessary and unworthy to get angry about this. I know you are a man of honor. I am grateful for your kindness. I won't advise you anything else. I just hope that when you fight with others, you will think about me and the child. Otherwise, what will happen to us mother and child? Zhao's eyes reddened as she spoke. This is what Lu Kang feared the most. Mother, please don't do this. I know. I will be careful in the future and try to avoid danger. You must remember what you said. Don't rush in when your mind is hot. Yes. Yes, Lu Kang agreed. Seeing that Zhao still wanted to continue, he quickly changed the subject. Wife, you haven't been to the Han family for a long time. Why did you go there today? What's the matter with Mrs. Han? Nothing, it's just that Madam Han is a little bored, so she sent someone to ask me to go over and talk to her. Lord Han has been busy these days and hasn't been home, so Madam Han is worried. Husband, do you know what Lord Han has been busy with recently? Zhao asked, specifically thinking of Su Wenayu's words. Why are you asking these questions as a woman? Didn't I tell you not to ask? You don't understand what's going on in the military camp even if I tell you. It's just asking, why are you so arrogant? Madam Han wants to know what Lord Han is doing, so she's asking me in a roundabout way, thinking I didn't hear it. Madam Zhao scolded Lu Kang. In fact, she didn't see it at first, but later Madam Han asked a few more questions, and she understood it. Then you can't say it. Lord Han specifically told you not to let Madam know, and you women are not tight-lipped and it's easy to leak it. Lu Kang admired the Lord even more at this time, and he could actually guess that Madam would get information from their daughter-in-law. Zhao didn't think much of it at first, but Lu Kang's words made her suspicious. She felt a pang in her heart, wondering if Lord Han couldn't stand the loneliness and had a mistress outside. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 215. This is not possible. Mrs. Han usually treats her well. If Mr. Han really has someone outside, Mrs. Han must be on guard earlier. Don't let those vixens lure Mr. Han away before it is too late. If there's anything you can't say, please tell me. Master Han didn't do anything to offend Mrs. Han outside, right? You men are like this. You can't stand the smell of meat at all. We women work hard at home to take care of the housework. But you are living happily outside, and you don't know what good things those vixens are. Every royal wife hates women who come between themselves and their husbands. When Zhao talked about this, she looked like she shared the same hatred with the enemy. She kept talking, but was interrupted by Lu Kang. What nonsense! Are you that kind of person? Your Majesty is just because these things are dangerous and you are afraid that Mrs. Han will be worried if she hears them, so you specifically told her not to talk about them. Madam has such a big belly. It is for the sake of Madam. What do you think? If you say this, the adults will be angry if they hear it. My daughter's family is like this. She likes to think about the smallest things. I just listen to what you say, but you are not allowed to say it in front of the madam. If it makes the madam worried. I can't spare you, Lu Kang said warningly. He knew that his wife knew what was right, but it was hard to tell in this regard. I know, what are you doing so fiercely? But if this is really the case, Master Han still loves his wife. He usually looks cold, which makes people scared, but when he looks at Mrs. Han, he is very gentle and considerate. If I hadn't bumped into him by chance, I wouldn't have known that Mr. Han was like this in private. Sir, of course you love your wife, and your style is very upright. You women just love to talk nonsense. Okay, stop talking about this, and quickly hand over the children. Let's start dinner. I haven't had anything to eat for a long time. There are so many delicious foods, I want to have a good meal today. Lu Zhao knew about Han Yu's intentions in Lu Kang and often went to Han's house to accompany Su Wenyu. However, she was careful when speaking in front of Su Wenyu, for fear of saying something wrong. Su Wenyu knew what was going on at a glance and had known about Han Yu for a long time. This guy is so cunning. If he really doesn't want her to know, he won't let her take advantage of him. But except for this, Mrs. Zhao can be said to know everything about Su Wenyu. As long as Su Wenyu wants to know, she will not hide it at all. Occasionally she will invite Mrs. Yao Qin and others to come to the Han family. Mrs. Yao Qin is different. If he kept talking, even if there was something he couldn't say, it would be easy for Su Wenyu to trick her out, but it was a pity that Yao Qin didn't know the news at all. Han Yu came back earlier that night, and brought a few people with him. His expression was a little ugly, but he relaxed when he saw Su Wenyu, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. Hello, madam. Several people who came back with Han Yu also greeted Su Wenyu when they saw her. Daughter-in-law, why did you come out? I will arrange all these things. Now that your belly is getting bigger, you have to be careful when moving. I am busy with many things and cannot take care of it so thoroughly. You have to take good care of yourself. Han Yu helped him. He looked at Su Wenyu, touched his wife's head and said with a bit of softness in his voice. When several subordinates saw their boss, who was usually cold and closed to strangers, he looked completely different in front of his daughter-in-law. His gentle and doting tone made them a little unbelievable. Moreover, his wife was really beautiful, but she was pregnant. With such a big belly, she is much prettier than the mother-in-law in their family, and has a better temperament. Her smile is gentle and soft, which makes people feel soft in the heart. All men will like her. No wonder adults also fall under the pomegranate skirt of their daughter-in-law. When Han Yu saw several subordinates staring at his wife, his face turned dark. He moved quietly to block his wife behind him, and his body continued to release cold air. Several subordinates shuddered and looked at their boss's appearance. They didn't know the reason, but they looked away and didn't dare to look again. He was so jealous, they didn't dare to touch his back, otherwise they wouldn't be dealt with by him when he turned around. It's so miserable. It's so cruel to think that the soldiers below them have been drilled by adults to the point where they can't even walk. Han Yu's complexion improved a little when he saw that several of his subordinates recognized each other, but he still did not move away from his blocking body and was very possessive. Su Wenyu also knew that Han Yu had brought someone back, so she came here to say hello and prepare dinner. Every time she came, the servants were busy. She, the hostess, had never shown her face once. She felt that it was not good. She felt like this right now. She was in good spirits, so she asked her servants to help her over. I know. Don't worry. I feel quite energetic right now, so I came out to see. Mister, do you want to talk about something? You don't need to worry about me. I'll go ahead and leave it to me. Wait. I'll let my servants let you know when dinner is ready. Well, there are some things to talk about. What are you talking about with a big belly? You will be tired when you look back. These servants can do it well. You go back to your room and rest obediently. I will come over to accompany you after we have discussed the matter, Han Yu said, and asked his servants to lead several subordinates to the study. He personally sent Su Wenyu back to the room before passing. You guys should be more vigilant around my wife these days. Don't let others say things that shouldn't be said in front of my wife. But you should also be careful not to make my wife suspicious before going out the next day, Han Yu specially told Grandma Li, and Grandma Chen called over to give instructions. Yes, sir, I know this. Nanny Chen and Nanny Li both accepted the order, but Nanny Li thought for a while and spoke again. My lord, if you are brave, I would like to ask you what happened. If you know, I will have an idea and you can change the subject in time. Nanny Li is a well-calculated person, and she knows that the Lord has ordered this. Something must have happened, and they were afraid of making it too obvious to arouse Madame's suspicion, so they were alerted. Most of the matter had a lot to do with Madame. I wonder if something happened to the Suk family. Grandma Li has been in the Suk family for half her life and is loyal to the Yin family. She is a little worried, and she needs to know things clearly before she can act. If she sees something is wrong, she will immediately leave the room, so as not to be unable to react when the incident comes, and spoil the adults. Thing. After serving Madame for so long, she understood that Madame may look confused at times, but she is not someone to be fooled. There are some things that Madame understands in her heart. It just depends on Madame whether she wants to find out. With how much Madame values her natal family, if she really something happened to the Suk family, and as long as there was even the slightest sign that something was wrong, it would be extremely difficult to hide it. Madame is now quite sensitive to such things. Han Yu's deep eyes fell on Nanny Li. He stared at Nanny Li for a long time. Seeing that Nanny Li was still standing there calmly, he felt a little more satisfied. She was a responsible person. He who holds great responsibilities and is loyal. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 216. Only with an open heart and a clear conscience can we withstand the pressure he deliberately released. After what happened last time, Nanny Li was able to respond in time and make the most reasonable arrangements. Han Yu was very satisfied with Nanny Li and had a feeling of relying on her, although he also saw that although Nanny Li usually carried out his duties, the order was firm, but at the critical moment, he was more protective of Su Wenyu. Because this was more in line with his wishes, it was the best way to stay with his wife. Grandma Chen is not as good as Grandma Li. She has no courage to speak up when it is critical. She is hesitant and afraid of taking responsibility, which will only lead to trouble. She is also too honest and cannot predict the master's thoughts very well. However, Grandma Chen is loyal. She was careful, and even though she could not hold a big position, it was still good to have her assist Grandma Li in dealing with some daily matters. In this way, Han Yu had already decided on the roles of Grandma Li and Grandma Chen in his heart. It's some things about Madam's natal family. You should pay attention to it. Whenever it comes to talking about it, try to change the topic. Grandma Li has a good idea of what to do. You should understand in your heart that Grandma Chen can just listen to Grandma Li's instructions. Han Yu didn't make it clear in detail, but he confirmed the suspicion in Nanny Li's mind. When Nanny Li heard that something had happened to the Su family, although she was worried, she still adhered to the propriety of being a slave and did not dare to ask in detail what happened. She just wanted to know the current situation of the Su family. How dare you, slave? I wonder if the affairs of Madam's natal family will be in serious trouble. Although it is dangerous, there is no serious problem. Just take care of Madam. I will handle the matter there. Remember not to show your presence in front of Madam. Han Yu is not a wordy person, but what happened when he met Su Wenyu was, mother-in-law and mother gave a few instructions, obviously feeling uneasy. If it weren't for the fact that he had to deal with things everywhere, he would have wished he could have stayed with her at home. After all, Grandma Li was just a servant, and there can be no omissions. Don't worry, sir, I will be alert. Grandma Li originally wanted to say that otherwise Mrs. Yao and the others would not be allowed to see Madam these days, but she felt it was inappropriate before the words came out, so she suppressed it. Grandma Chen watched Han Yu leave. Grandma Li was not dissatisfied when Han Yu asked her to listen. Although she was not that smart, she was self-aware. She could serve others, but she could not take matters into her own hands. Last time I heard that the Lord was in danger, she was so panicked that she had no idea at all. It was Nanny Li who stepped forward to stabilize the situation and nothing happened to her. So she was convinced to listen to Nanny Li. No one has such ability and has to be taken care of. What's more, although Grandma Li is strict in doing things, she has never been the one to make things difficult for others. Su Wenyu felt a little strange when she didn't see Nanny Li and Nanny Chen coming to serve her when she got up. These two people couldn't be more attentive. One of them would definitely be by her side when Han Yu was away. After asking the maid, she found out that the two of them were being taken care of by Han Yu. Called. Su Wenyu pouted. Han Yu must be hiding something from her, or giving some orders to Aunt Li and Aunt Chen. Anyway, it was 100% related to her. Although she has the privilege of being pregnant with a child, and can give Han Yu some color from time to time, it also completely deprives her of her freedom, allowing her to be controlled by Han Yu, and he hides all the troubles from her. The name is to let her have peace of mind to raise her baby, which is so irritating. Su Wenyu's face became serious as she thought about it. When she saw Grandma Li and Grandma Chen coming in, she stared at them without blinking. Grandma Li, Grandma Chen, why did my husband call you? Aunt Li and Aunt Chen felt a little numb when they saw Su Wenyu like this. They were very familiar with this expression. It was like this when Madam was angry and wanted to torment everyone. Back to Madam, sir, please call the slave over and ask the slave to take good care of Madam. Don't be as careless as yesterday and make Madam tired. Aunt Li was very good at dealing with Su Wenyu. She knew that no matter what happened, Madam I definitely wouldn't believe it, and according to Han Yu's usual habit, he found a better reason. Su Wenyu actually believed it when she heard it. Han Yu was busy at home and had no time to take care of himself. He was afraid that the servants at home would not be careful, so he would have to give instructions every 1 or 2 days. In a situation like yesterday, it was expected to call Nanny Li and Nanny Chen to reprimand and admonish them, but even though she thought so in her heart, Su Wenyu still didn't let it go, and her face was still suspicious. That's true. Why do I feel that something is not right? What else did Your Excellency order you to do? Grandma Li could barely cope under Han Yu's pressure. Su Wenyu's skills were a bit inferior to Han Yu's, but she still had a look of fear on her face. Madam, I don't dare to deceive you. This is indeed what my lord ordered. He also said that if I don't serve Madam well, I will lose all the dignity I have gained over the past few decades, and I will have no shame to see Madam Su. Su Wenyu felt a little sorry when she saw Aunt Li like this. Aunt Li was an old nanny who stayed with her mother and won her mother's trust. If it wasn't because she felt so sorry for her daughter, she wouldn't trust her. Her mother was absolutely reluctant to give up Nanny Li to anyone, but now she was scolded by Han Yu. She could imagine Han Yu reprimanding Nanny Li with a cold face. Don't listen to his nonsense. It's not that serious. I'm not someone who doesn't know what's important. I'm very concerned about the child in my belly. I know where things will really go wrong. You still serve me like usual. That's it, there's no need to be too harsh on yourself. My husband is just too nervous about the child in my belly, so don't take it to heart if he says something too harsh. Su Wenyu's words were meant to comfort Aunt Li and Aunt Chen. They came to the Han family because of her, but they left all their previous annoyance and suspicion behind. Madam Li was relieved to see Su Wenyu so relieved. She was right. Madam was kind-hearted. She would not blame or embarrass them even if they were just servants. Madam Chen thought differently. She had always seen Madam Li strictly following the rules. She thought that Madam Li was an unreasonable and old-fashioned person. Now she saw that Madam Li lied to Madam without changing her expression. She was not flustered or flawed. She admired her very much. She did not think that Madam Li did anything wrong. After all, Madam Li was more loyal than anyone else here. She would never do anything harmful to Madam. Today's matter was also ordered by the adults. Nanny Li and Nanny Chen cooperated very well this time. After a few days, Su Wenyu didn't notice anything wrong. Such a big thing happened in the Su family, and it was spread all over the outside world. The servants in the family heard some rumors, but they all knew that the master was pregnant and couldn't stand the stimulation. There were also words from the adults in advance, and Nanny Li and Nanny Chen were there to keep things under control. So when Yao Qin came to the mansion in a hurry and said those words, Su Wenyu was still confused. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tian. Chapter 217. Mrs. Yao Qin also heard about it accidentally when she was chatting with someone. She didn't pay much attention at first and just listened to the gossip. Then she suddenly remembered that the Su family was Su Wenyu's natal family and immediately arrested the person and asked them. Mrs. Han's eldest brother was out. Regarding the matter, it seems that Mrs. Han is in a good mood these days. She even jokes with them sometimes and is not worried at all. It can be seen that she is not aware of this matter at all. Mrs. Yao Qin immediately felt as if she had received a shot of chicken blood, thinking that she had received the great news, and came to the Han family in a hurry, thinking that in the past, Mrs. Zhao had been the one to show off in front of Mrs. Han, and this time it was her turn. She wants, after this time Mrs. Han will trust her more, and maybe she will be taken more seriously by Mrs. Han than Zhao. Having benefited from Su Wenyu, Yao Qin worked hard to show off in front of Su Wenyu, so he rushed to the Han family without consulting anyone. For people like Yao Qin who often come to the Han family, the servants will not stop them and will only let them know. Grandma Li and Chen are waiting beside Su Wenyu. When they see Yao Qin coming over in a hurry, they didn't even stop them. They looked at each other, worry flashed across their faces. Several days pass safely, don't make any mistakes again at this time. Mrs. Yao, our wife has just taken a nap. Why don't you go sit outside for a while first? The old slave will serve the lady to eat. The lady is still pregnant with the child. She is not hungry at all, nor can she bear any stimulation. How about you, madam? Don't be offended, Grandma Li spoke before Mrs. Yao Qin. Even if there were some flaws in her words, Madam might think it was inappropriate. At this time, there was nothing she could do. This was a disguised reminder to Mrs. Yao Qin. Yao Qin was a reckless person. If she wanted to show off in front of Su Wenyu, she would not be able to understand the meaning of Nanny Li's words. Instead, she felt that this old servant was a little ignorant. His master was interjecting in the middle of his words and did not understand the rules. Mother Li, servants should follow the rules of servants. How can we eat at this time? If Madam knows the news about the Su family, I'm afraid she won't be able to eat anything, and you slaves will do bad things. Yao Mrs. Qin glared at Nanny Li. Before, she was not sure what Yao Qin was going to say. After hearing Yao Qin's words, Grandma Li's heart skipped a beat. Mrs. Yao, don't talk nonsense. You can eat food but not talk nonsense. If you hear something outside, the rumor was spread to Madam indiscriminately, which caused her irritation and hurt the child in her belly. If you find out about it, you will not let it go. Madam Yao, you have to think clearly before talking about it. Aunt Li's words contained a bit of threat, and she was thinking of having someone notify the Lord as soon as possible. For this reason, even if Mrs. Yao knew that she was powerful and was not talking nonsense, she would not believe her explanation. Only when the adult comes back can the madam be persuaded to stay. Aunt Chen was also very worried when she saw this. She immediately understood when she saw the look in Aunt Li's direction and quietly withdrew, letting Cheng Hai go to the military camp to find Han Yu. You must be quick. Madam values your natal family the most. Knowing that something happened to the Su family, how can you keep calm and listen to others' advice? I'm afraid something will happen. Please come back as soon as possible. The sooner the better. The atmosphere in the room seemed very tense. Yao Qin did not understand the hidden meaning of Nanny Li's words, but she heard the threat from Nanny Li. An old servant dared to threaten her. Her anger rose slowly, and she, afraid of making mistakes, I repeatedly confirmed the accuracy of the information. I was confident, not afraid of threats from this old slave. You old servant, don't be arrogant. I, Mrs. Qin, am not the kind of person who spreads rumors randomly. Since I dare to speak in front of Madam, I am sure that the news I get is true. If you try to stop Madam's business again, you, my wife, won't let you go. Don't think that anyone has to let you go because of your age. Mrs. Yao Qin has long been dissatisfied with this old lady who always has a stern face. She is just a slave. What are you proud of? Grandma Li's face turned dark. Mrs. Yao Qin said it didn't matter to her, but she was afraid that her wife would be provoked and something would happen. At this time, she didn't care much anymore, and asked someone to get Ms. Yao Qin out before talking, so as to avoid the situation becoming more chaotic. I think Mrs. Yao went to other people's houses to talk nonsense because she was drunk. It would be a big deal if she bumped into her. I'd better send Mrs. Yao back first. How dare you, you ignorant old slave! That's enough. Do you still have me as your master in your eyes? Su Wenyu suddenly shouted coldly, and both Yao Qin and Grandma Li immediately stopped. Yao Qin looked proud, while Grandma Li looked worried and angry. Yao Qinchi is such a brainless person. When Su Wenyu heard from Yao Qinchi that something happened to her eldest brother, she felt nervous. Her brain was short of oxygen for a moment and couldn't react in time, so she didn't react in time. She felt that Grandma Li and Grandma Chen had been too nervous in the past few days. She thought it was because she was warned by Han Yu, so they worked together to hide it from her. I was afraid that it was the same thing that Han Yu called Aunt Li and Aunt Chen to that morning. Seeing that Aunt Li was in a hurry to, Yao Qin rushed out and tried to cover up, and immediately became angry. Madam, you. Shut up, do you still take me as your master seriously? How dare you hide such a big thing from me? Aunt Li, you were sent here by my mother. I rely on you, but that doesn't mean you can do this. Fool me, don't take me seriously. Su Wenyu couldn't suppress her anger, but she was anxious to know the situation of the Su family and what happened to her eldest brother, so she didn't get angry immediately. Mrs. Yao, what is going on? What happened to my elder brother? I just heard about it and came to report to you immediately. I heard that my wife's eldest brother encountered robbers in the Anshan area and was injured by the robbers. Madam's eldest brother was stabbed by the robbers. The rescuer, when the person arrived, half of his body was covered in blood. Yao Qin just relayed what the person said and didn't notice Su Wenayu's suddenly pale face. Madam, please don't get excited. You have to take care of the child in your belly. Although the eldest young master was injured, it was not as serious as Mrs. Yao said. He has been rescued and is recovering at home. Yes, ma'am, the eldest young master is fine. He can recover as long as he takes good care of his injuries. If you hurt the child in your belly when you get excited, the eldest young master will feel uneasy if he knows about it. After what happened in her previous life, Su Wen had paid much attention to the child in her belly, so she usually tolerated her dissatisfaction just for the sake of the child in her belly. But now, after hearing these words, she was extremely angry and kept suppressing it. Some of the emotions in my heart also came out. Child, what else can you see besides children? Prepare a carriage for me, I want to go to Su's house immediately, Su Wenyu said, holding her belly and rushing out of the door. Seeing Su Wenyu like this made all the servants in the family very anxious. Even Yao Qin realized that he seemed to be in trouble when he saw Su Wenyu like this. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tian Ni. Chapter 218. Madam, I kneel down for you. Please don't look at me. Seeing how much my lord has put so much effort into you, you are so pregnant. What if something goes wrong on the way to Su's house? Aunt Li said. He didn't dare to mention the child, so he had to pull Han Yu out. Madam, this old servant has already gone to ask someone to notify you of your return. If you want to go to Su's house, you might as well wait and let me protect you, Aunt Chen also advised her. Humph, you are such good slaves. You are all good slaves of Han Yu. Are you working hard on me? It is indeed a lot of painstaking efforts. If he hadn't tried so hard to hide it, he would have deceived me so miserably. Just for his children, I don't care about my feelings. Something happened to the Su family. My eldest brother was so seriously injured, but he kept it from me. Don't you know that he is the eldest brother who has pampered me since I was a child? I couldn't rush over immediately after being injured, but I don't even know the news. How embarrassed I am. Madam, I am afraid that you will be irritated, so I want to hide it from you. Aunt Li quickly defended Han Yu, fearing that Su Wenyu's ideas were too extreme and made the adults angry. If you didn't tell me when your elder brother was injured because you were afraid of irritating me, then why didn't you tell me what happened when your elder brother was recuperating? I was really that fragile. After Su Wenyu said this, she didn't want to say anything anymore and pursed her lips. As he walked outside, in addition to being worried about his eldest brother, he was also angry and disappointed with Han Yu. Seeing that they could not dissuade the madam, but instead made her even more angry, Aunt Chen and Aunt Li were anxious and at a loss. They quickly followed and tried to help Su Wenyu, but Su Wenyu shook their hands away. It would be great if Xiao 11 was here at this time. Xiao 11 has been following Su Wenyu since she was a child, and there are things that happened in her previous life. Su Wenyu will take Xiao 11's face no matter what. It's a pity that Xiao 11 was sent by Su Wenyu to do something, regardless of whether Xiao 11 is here. Fortunately, this matter may no longer be hidden. Su Wenyu was already out of breath when she walked to the gate. Because she was pregnant, she couldn't move faster even if she speeded up. For such a long time, she didn't see the carriage when she arrived at the gate, and Su Wenyu's face became even more gloomy. Didn't I say that the carriage should be prepared? As for the carriage, I am so useless as a master, or do you only have one master in your heart and are you planning to let me go on foot? As soon as Su Wenyu said these words, a large number of servants came out and persuaded them to kneel down. Aunt Li knelt down in front of Su Wenyu. Madam, I know you are angry, but you must not worry about your own body. This carriage is bumpy all the way. You are almost 8 months pregnant, how can you bear it? It's not up to you as a slave whether I can bear it or not. I haven't prepared a carriage because I think I can't let you down. Su Wenyu cherishes the child in her belly, but she can't feel at ease if she doesn't go see her eldest brother in person. Go back to Madam, the wheel of the carriage is broken and we are repairing it. I'm afraid it will take some time, the boy who drove the carriage timidly reported. In fact, the carriage was not broken. It was just a pre-arranged statement by Grandma Li to delay it. The time is waiting for the adult to come back, and how will the adult comfort and appease the wife at that time? What do you do on weekdays? When the carriage is not broken, it broke down at this time. I think you did it on purpose. Since the carriage is broken, you can borrow it or buy it for me. Our family is not the only one in the town. A carriage. Su Wenyu was so angry that she really had no choice but to go there without a carriage. She couldn't really walk. Madam, even if you borrow the carriage, it will take time. How about I help you go in and rest first, and then come out after the carriage is borrowed? Grandma Li knew that the lady was angry with her, but she still said it bravely. Su Wenyu ignored Nanny Li and just stood there waiting. As luck would have it, a carriage came not long after and stopped a few steps in front of Su Wenyu. A hand was stretched out from inside. Mrs. Han, are you waiting for the carriage? If you don't mind, I'll let the carriage give you a ride. Si Kongling opened the curtain and came out, and the face of a handsome young man appeared in front of everyone, looking at him gently. Su Wenyu. Except for Su Wenyu, everyone's first reaction when they saw Sikongyu was that he was really well born and had an outstanding temperament. Looking at his clothes and actions, everything showed that he had a good status and background. Most people can't cultivate him. To have such a talent, he must be the son of a noble family. Is it you? Su Wenyu was stunned for a moment when she saw that the person in the carriage was Si Kongling. She was a little surprised that Si Kongling would appear here. Could it be that Si Kongling didn't give up at Lingyan Temple last time and was still staring at it? When she thought about it, Su Wenyu looked at Si Kongling with guarded eyes. Si Kongling met Su Wenyu's suspicious eyes, and he looked calm, without any guilt or discomfort. His bright and graceful appearance even dispelled the doubts in the hearts of Aunt Li and the others. However, it was still not good for Madame to go with a strange man. And they wanted to wait for the adults to come back to appease the Madame, but this person interfered and ruined things. I had some things to do in Silla town. When I came out, I saw your young man borrowing a carriage, and I saw you waiting here. Obviously you need the carriage urgently. If you don't mind if I give you a ride? Don't worry, I will. Si Kongling is not that frivolous person, you can bring your servants with you. Su Wenyu didn't show it on her face, but she was despising him in her heart. No one else knew about Si Kongling, and she didn't know his true face. If he wasn't frivolous, how could he explain what happened at Lingyan Temple last time, and what happened in his previous life? After all, she would not be deceived by his good looks and eloquence. Si Kongling didn't know that his details had been known to her for a long time, so she said such things. Why, isn't Mrs. Han going in a hurry? Forget it, I originally meant well, but it would be bad if Mrs. Han misunderstood me. Si Kongling didn't know what Su Wenyu was thinking, but he could tell a lot through Su Wenyu's expression. Things naturally have ways to deal with them. If Si Kongling insisted on giving her away, Su Wenyu would still be hesitant to agree. She wanted to see her eldest brother eagerly, but Si Kongling really made her too afraid. Now that Si Kongling did not insist, Su Wenyu relaxed a little. Si Kongling's move of retreating in order to advance was a good one, but Grandma Li was very anxious when she saw the moving look on Su Wenyu's face. Madam, why don't you wait a moment, my lord will be back soon. Su Wenyu's last hesitation disappeared after hearing Nanny Li's words, and she immediately decided to get on Si Kong Ling's carriage. She thought that Si Kong Ling was not only daring to do anything to her in front of everyone, not to mention she was also a pregnant woman. Pregnant women can't do anything. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 219. Han Yu was very busy these days. He had to arrange that matter, and he had to worry about his uncle when something happened. He finally solved the matter at hand, but he saw his nursing home coming towards the military camp. They must be here to find him. Something happened at home. And in such a hurry, Han Yu's heart tightened. It was probably because his wife knew about his uncle's affairs. Sure enough, as soon as the nurse came to him, he said, "Sir, Grandma Chen asked the servant to come and ask you to go back immediately." Mrs. Yao told Madam about the Su family's affairs. Madam didn't look well. Granny Chen was afraid that something would happen. "Let me ask you to go back." Han Yu's face darkened as soon as he heard this. This Yao Qin, a stupid person, immediately drove back. He knew how much his wife valued her parents' family, and knew that his uncle had to go to see him if something happened, so he kept it secret. However, his wife's belly was so big that she sometimes trembled when she walked. His heart trembled when he looked at her, wondering where she could run. If the daughter-in-law gets angry, the people at home will definitely not be able to stop her. Han Yu did not rush home, but took a shortcut on the way to Su's house. Maybe he could catch up halfway. Su Wenyu got on the carriage, and Nanny Chen followed. Su Wenyu was unhappy and did not say anything. As long as it was not Nanny Li, she would follow her. She was also afraid that something might happen to her children during the bumpy journey, so she had to have someone to take care of her, and there was no one in the carriage. Ling was alone, and Su Wenyu was not willing to be alone with Si Kong Ling. "Look at the sweat on your tired forehead, and your belly is so big. Isn't it very hard for you? Come on, drink a glass of water," Si Kong Ling Bai said, and poured a glass of water for Su Wenyu. Su Wenyu was indeed thirsty at this time. Thinking that Si Kong Ling could not do anything about it, she took a few sips of water and was surprised that there was a faint sweetness in the water. "Is this honey water? My throat has been bad these days, and it's a bit dry. The following person prepared some honey water, but you don't like it? This is the only one on the carriage, so you just have to drink it. It's said that drinking this is also good for pregnant women." Su Wenyu nodded and said nothing, but she felt a little weird in her heart. Don't look at Si Kong Yu, who is easy to get along with and talk to. In fact, he is actually a very picky person. He doesn't like to take medicine when he is sick, let alone it's just that my throat is uncomfortable. Drinking honey water, something women often drink, is really a little bit, haha. When Si Kong Ling saw Su Wenyu like this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He took out a plate of exquisite snacks from the secret compartment of the carriage and persuaded Su Wenyu to eat a few pieces. He gave up when he saw that Su Wenyu really had no appetite. "My carriage is quite comfortable. You can rest on it for a while. Even if you have something urgent to do, you have to worry about the baby in your belly. Don't be tired," Si Kong Ling said, and helped Su Wenyu put the cushions on the carriage. They were all put away. The level of attentiveness made Grandma Chen frown a few times. Su Wenyu was also very uncomfortable. In her previous life, when she was the only one serving this guy, she had never enjoyed such treatment. Sure enough, she was not in business. Su Wenyu nodded, leaned on the cushion, found a more comfortable position and closed her eyes. She was soft-spoken, and Si Kong Ling's carriage was not easy to embarrass others, but she really didn't want to talk to Si Kong Ling, so she might as well as a loyal servant. Nanny Chen naturally cannot watch other men approach her wife. Even though Mr. Sikong is really good looking and intentionally or unintentionally separated Si Kong Ling is not annoyed and just stays there quietly. Sitting there, his eyes were focused on Su Wenyu, not shying away at all. Seeing Si Kong Ling behaving like this, Grandma Chen felt even worse. She could only try her best to block Si Kong Ling's side between the two of them, and her impression of Si Kong Ling dropped a bit. She originally thought that such a noble young master who was relegated to an immortal could behave like a fairy. It's everyone's style. He should know the rules and avoid suspicion, but he is courteous to his wife and looks at her like this. Han Yu took a shortcut to Su's house. He had planned to catch up with Su Wenyu's carriage soon, but he didn't know that halfway there, the road was blocked. A wooden wheel cart pulling lumber rolled over there, and the lumber was spread on the ground. There were other carriages blocked on the road. The road here was already narrow, but now it was even more difficult to pass. On weekdays, this road is very deserted, and you may not see a few people in a long time. Today, someone happened to block the road. Han Yu was a little suspicious, but he was not sure. Going back would not only take a detour, but also waste time. There are too many, so we can only find ways to open the road quickly. Si Kong Ling sent Su Wenyu to the gate of Su's house and watched with his own eyes as Su Wenyu entered the house but did not leave too far. Instead, he asked the boy driving the car to find a place to park and wait. Su's hair has turned a lot gray these days because of her eldest son's affairs. Finally, her son's injury has finally gotten better in the past few days, so she can breathe a sigh of relief. Her daughter-in-law can take care of the rest. Who would have thought that a servant would suddenly come to report to her daughter? Came back. Su was startled. Why are you going back to your parents' house to raise your baby when you're not at home? Although she said this, and knew that her daughter was worried about her son, and she didn't tell her to hide it. Now it seemed that something had gone wrong. Thinking about the good relationship between her daughter and her son, she felt somewhat relieved, and she was also worried that her daughter would be 7. I'm almost 8 months pregnant, and I don't know if I can bear all this trouble. When Su Wenyu arrived at Su Mansion, she walked to Su Henji's residence. Someone had already got the news and informed Su Henji. Su Henji frowned tightly. What was going on with this brother-in-law? Didn't he promise not to let his little sister worry? Why did he end up letting her? My sister knows it. My little sister is already almost 8 months pregnant. How can I go through such trouble? It's really not a worry. With Su Henji thinking, he immediately walked outside and greeted Su Wenyu at the entrance of the courtyard. Brother, how are you? Are your injuries better? Su Wenyu breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Su Henji. It seems that Grandma Li didn't lie to her. Brother is really fine, otherwise she couldn't go out and walk around either. She was worried that Grandma Li would lie to prevent her from worrying. She stared at Su Henji and looked at her from top to bottom. It seems that brother's injury is really not serious. That's good. Su Wenyu was talking to herself, without waiting for Su Henji's answer. Su Henji heard a lot from these words, and his eyebrows moved, and he saw Granny Chen following Su Wenyu, who was so obedient that she didn't even dare to say a word. This girl was probably losing her temper. Don't worry, the injury wasn't serious in the first place, but the bleeding was a bit scary at the time, and the vital part was not injured. But why did you run back like this, little sister? You are almost a child, why are you still so willful? Su Henji felt frightened when he saw the little girl with such a tall and trembling belly, and reprimanded him unconsciously. Brother, my stomach hurts. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 220. Su Wenyu frowned and held her stomach and said, with a look of pain on her face. In fact, it didn't hurt too much, it was just a throbbing. But she cared about the child in her belly, so she didn't dare to ignore it in the slightest, and she really didn't want to be hurt again. The eldest brother preached, probably because he was worried that he would be too excited, and then running all the way. An ordinary pregnant woman might be able to bear it, but she was pregnant with 2 in her belly, and her body bones were not very strong. It was only because of her careful protection that nothing happened. At this time, I became more responsive when I relaxed. So when I came here without knowing the importance of it. Suhenji still had a lot of things to say to his sister. He wanted to educate her sister well. Even if Suwenaya got married, Suhenji would take care of her. If Hanyu didn't take care of her, Hanyu would be indispensable. He was reprimanded by Hanyu. Quickly, go get Dr. Lin. Suhenji was originally worried about his sister coming with such a big belly. When he heard that Suwenaya was complaining about pain, his expression changed and he immediately asked someone to call the doctor, regardless of his own injuries. Take Suwenaya into her room and lie down first. At this time, Su Hongxian also heard the news of Suwenaya's arrival and rushed over. Seeing that his elder brother didn't even care about his own injury, he hurried over to help. Brother, your injuries haven't healed yet. Pay attention to yourself. Both his sister and his eldest brother are the people Su Hongxian cares about. While taking care of his sister, Su Hongxian did not forget to tell Su Henji. Su Hongxian knew very well that his brother had how much you love your sister, she is no less generous than him. Fortunately, because of Su Hengxuan's injury, there was a doctor living in the house. Dr. Lin, who had been treating the Su family, first changed the medicine for Su Henji's injury. Now he was dragged away again, with a handful of old bones. He was loose, but knowing that Su Wenyu had a stomachache, Dr. Lin was actually anxious and followed her as quickly as possible. Dr. Lin was alone and childless all his life. He was close to the Su family and was very happy with the children of the Su family. To put it bluntly, he regarded the children of the Su family as his own. Especially Su Wenyu, such a cute little girl, petite, who makes people happy even if she is cute and sassy. She is still the only daughter of the Su family. Who would not feel sorry for her and treat her like a ball in her eyes? Su Wenyu was lying on the bed, and the throbbing pain intensified. She was sweating from the pain, and her face became paler. At this time, Mr. Su and Ms. Su came over. Seeing their daughter like this, they are all distressed and worried. Daughter, how are you? Do you feel severe pain? It's true that you have such a big belly, how can you still ride a bumpy carriage? How can this son-in-law take care of you? How can he just let it go? You're such a fool. It was the first time that Mr. Su was so dissatisfied with his beloved son-in-law. Seeing his daughter's stoic look, he felt very distressed. His beloved daughter. If Su Wenyu had heard this before, she would have defended Hanyu. At this time, she was angry with Hanyu, and she was in so much pain that she had no strength left. Why hasn't Dr. Lin come here yet? Go and ask someone to urge you. It hurts like this every month. How can this be good? Ms. Su said and was about to send someone to urge her. She is already almost 8 months old. What if something goes wrong? Come here, Dr. Lin is here. Su Hengxuan's servant, who was close to him, responded as he dragged Dr. Lin in. He was out of breath because he was running so fast. At this time, the situation was urgent. Dr. Lin ignored the false courtesy and went directly to diagnose Su Wenyu's pulse. Then he took out a few silver needles from the medicine box and inserted them into the acupuncture points. After acupuncture, Su Wenyu felt that the pain was relieved a lot, but he had no strength left. Lying on the bed, he felt light, and his consciousness was a little blurry. Dr. Lin secretly thought something bad was wrong when he saw Su Wenyu like this. After checking his pulse, his face became more solemn. Seeing Dr. Lin like this, the Su family knew that Su Wenyu's situation was not optimistic, and the atmosphere in the room became suffocating. Dr. Lin, how is my little sister doing? Is the baby in her belly okay? Suhenji saw Dr. Lin looking over and asked. Dr. Lin wanted to prescribe a medicine for the boy to take and boil. He also gave some instructions before answering Suhenji's question. Mrs. Situation is not very optimistic. She was frightened, and after all this trouble, her fetus has moved. If an ordinary pregnant woman can find a way to stabilize it, she is pregnant with twins, and they are nearly 8 months old. If this continues, both the adult and the child in the belly will be in danger. The only way is to prescribe inducing labor medicine and let the lady give birth to the child in the belly. Dr. Lin made a decision immediately based on Su Wenyu's current situation. In fact, no matter which one it is. Doctor, this is the only way to deal with such a situation. But the child in Yu Niang's belly is less than 8 months old now. If she gives birth, will the child in her belly be okay? Anne's worried about her daughter, but as a housewife, she understands the importance of an heir to a woman. The importance of the baby. After this birth, the daughter will definitely lose her vitality. She will have to nurse herself back to health for several years before she can give birth. Otherwise, the body will suffer too much. Moreover, many women cannot be pregnant again because of problems during childbirth. Nothing can happen to their daughters. Nothing can happen to the child in the belly. This, if everything goes well, it is still possible to save the baby in the belly. Generally, most people who are pregnant with twins will give birth prematurely. Under normal circumstances, the young lady will give birth in half a month, but now it is just half a month earlier. In a few months, the child in the belly will be fully developed. If everything goes well, the child's chance of survival is still very high. Dr. Lin talked about the most optimistic situation, but also with a somewhat uncertain tone. The reason why he mentioned the child instead of the adult was that he knew how much the Su family valued Su Wenyu, and it was impossible for them to give up the adult to save the child. If both the adult and the child could be saved, it would be the best. If they had to choose between the two, they would definitely choose the adult. And was relieved after hearing what Dr. Lin said. That's good, Dr. Lin, you must do your best to save Yu Niang and her child, no matter how much it costs. After hearing this, the three of Master Su, his son, and his son were not as optimistic as An. Dr. Lin and the others understood. If they were sure, they would not speak in such a tone. Everything goes well is the best situation, but Su Wenyu's current situation, even without Dr. Lin's words, can tell how bad it is by looking at Su Wenyu's pale face. Dr. Lin, how sure are you? None of the three Su family members were the type to avoid questions. Su Henji asked, having already made a plan in mind. Although he was looking forward to the arrival of his two little nephews, his nephews were no more important than his sister whom he had loved since childhood. There was no need to make a decision on this kind of question. It all depended on what Dr. Lin said.